What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Apex presented by RockShock. My name is John Kroom, and we're sitting here with Robert Mayfield out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. Robert runs a coaching business, but Robert, the cool thing about Robert is Robert's been like all over the world. Like he's raced track, he's raced road, all the way in Cali, Colombia to Trinidad and Tobago to Europe to back home. I mean, the guy's been all over the place, and now he runs a coaching business in Colorado Springs and coaches athletes from all over the world. But he also had the pleasure of doing the Apex last year. And I just thought I would pull him on and get the opportunity to chat with him and what his thoughts were on the Apex. But first, Rob, welcome to the podcast. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, man.
Oh, it's good to be here, man. I don't know. I've been a rider for a long time. I've been a coach for, probably over 10 years now. I actually decided to do the Apex on a whim just because there wasn't really anything else to do that weekend. And
I remember us having that conversation. It was just like
I bought a used bike from from my neighbor and got it ready the day before and did it. And I hadn't really mountain biked at all. So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit of how you find yourself in the sport of cycling. I know like everybody kind of has their weird story, but we'd love to hear yours and like just a little bit about you and who you are.
So I was super overweight when I was younger and I started commuting basically. Mm-hmm. And once I got acquainted with my neighborhood shop, there was a real eccentric owner, this guy named Carl Becker. He was a racer in like the 80s and 90s. And his dad was the only American to finish the 56 Olympic road race in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
And so it was just he had all this racing memorabilia, all these kind of cool collections of parts and stuff like that. And he kind of encouraged me to try racing, get into track racing, and it kind of just went from there.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And so, now you find yourself, you were in Portland. I guess you kind of moved all over. You went from St. Louis to Portland. Then you find yourself in Colorado Springs. Why Colorado Springs? Like, why did you move to Colorado Springs? What was the overall jump to Colorado Springs?
Well, I sort of moved to Portland just because I wanted to have, good access to racing, and they had a really good scene at the time. It's like on any given Thursday night at the track, pretty much at some point, everyone had medaled at Elite Nationals. And so that kind of dwindled at one point, and I kind of dabbled with the idea of moving to Vancouver and ended up here actually just because you told me how awesome it was.
Yeah.
There was an indoor track, and there was kind of a similar, scene starting back up, it seemed like.
But there was some things that solidified your move here. Like, I think it was really easy for me to say, hey man, come crash in the spare bedroom that I have. That's not even really a spare bedroom. But why don't you come crash with me? But I feel like there was as much as I want to accredit it to me being the reason why you moved here, I feel like there were some other reasons why it solidified.
Yeah. Well, so it started as you inviting me here, and I just I was blown away sort of at the level of even just local people. And, and then I guess we were at the track and I, kind of met Jeffrey Fryer, who was one of the nicest dudes on planet Earth. And, he definitely, reached out and kind of encouraged me to stick around. And then, of course I met Andy Sparks and Sarah Hammer, and they were, before that I'd only known them as names in books kind of thing, so it's cool to meet people who were, legends that I looked up to. And, they kind of offered me a job with their coaching group, and I got to learn a lot from them.
Sweet. No, that's sick, man. And so then that takes you on to your racing career, and you do a few nationals, you're coaching kind of, through that, and then we kind of hit COVID, and that's a bit hectic, especially with our race, and then everybody's life and whatever else. And yeah, I guess you're saying that you decided to do the Apex, and this is coming from, I would say you're a local at this point. This is if you're at the bike, especially at the bike race, right? At the
bike,
at the bike race, you're a local, right? And so,
sure.
I mean, a lot of people look at these bike races and they make it to be so hard and make it out to be this really epic event. Why, how did you look at the race and coming into the race, and what was your kind of thought process coming into the race?
Well, I wasn't really going to go out and ride all those trails on my own, probably. Like it's especially the trails, say up in Monument. It's kind of hard. Like there's all these other sort of informal trails that come off the official ones.
Yeah,
So, it kind of gets confusing and like, I mean, as you know, it's always a pain to just have to like stop every 10 minutes to be like, oh, am I in the right place or like
for
what's
sure.
going on? So I figured, with doing those races, it would just sort of show me some of like the, better courses that I could go ride on my own and just kind of like it was like a way to explore without having to like actually explore.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, no, for sure. What was probably your favorite stage?
um, really that monument stage, just like the descent back into town was like just this is kind of chunky and technical, but it was the sort of stuff that kind of what I would have ridden uh when I lived in Missouri and mountain biked, 15
Yeah.
years ago or whatever. Just kind of chunky, washed out, difficult stuff to get over, but is also just really fun.
Yeah, and like, and one thing that we're trying to get across is because I think people see the prize purse here, like people see the prize purse and like the pros that are signing up for this race, and they're just like, oh yeah, we're out, like we're not coming to this race. But one thing we're trying to get across with this race is that there's more to this race than just the big prize purse. What would be your advice to any athlete that's like on the fence like that? Like, I mean, you and I know you from like you and I, we know each other from the track world and track cycling and that pro level bike racing where it's like, oh crap, we can go win, a couple grand here, we can go win some money here, and then that can get us to over here. And so, I mean, mountain bikers probably do the same thing. They look at these races and they're like, oh yeah, there's, a couple $100 at least that can pay for everything. And so, but then that turns off the, quote unquote average Joe or like your average level cyclist. What's your advice to an average level cyclist or just anybody that wants to come do this race, that may not think that they can complete it or may not think they can do it?
Well, I think the courses are just so challenging on their own that it's almost just like, for me, I was just out there doing the best that I could. There's no way that I was going to stay with the top people, but I
Yeah.
found, small groups to ride with like throughout the day. Like if I got dropped from one, there'd be another one that would catch me and I'd ride with them. And, for the most part, every single person doing the race was actually a better mountain biker than me.
Yeah.
So it was actually like really fun to ride technical sections with people that were pretty good at technical sections. And like, while I could drop them on the climbs or something like that, it's like you're out there for 4 hours or something. So it's like you don't want to, it's not any fun to just ride it by yourself necessarily.
So you're pretty much saying you got to start somewhere kind of thing. Like you might as well
Yeah,
just
and
go.
I think on that stuff too, there's like a lot of local people that seemed intimidated by just doing it. Like it's like, oh, it's this big epic thing, but I don't know. I didn't really feel one way or the other about it. I just like it was just a good time.
Yeah. And so, and I mean, I do remember you saying it's like one of the hardest things you've ever done. And we want to make it clear, like this is a hard event. Like you're, you're exerting energy. You are going to wear yourself out. We're not saying that it's going to be some walk in the park if you come sign up, but we do want to make it clear that you're welcome to come test your fitness. You're welcome to come, test your abilities. And we do think that, you can get through it, especially if you're looking at this event. Like I think anybody that's searching for a mountain bike event, especially if it's a 4 day, stage style challenge, I do think, the majority of people that are looking at it can get through it with the right willpower and strength, and wanting to do it. It's not like we're gonna have time cuts and we're just gonna pull you out and say you're done.
Yeah. Well, and everything's really centrally located too. So it's like if you're staying in, closer to downtown, you could reasonably ride to every race start except say the Monument Day, where
Yeah.
obviously a bit of a drive.
Yeah, so cool. And then that kind of segueing off that, do you have any cool stories like from the event last year that you're just like, man, that was, because it's like I think one of the coolest things about some of these events, especially like these ultra endurance or like these epic events, you get to meet people, and us going back like being pro cyclists and whatever else. It's not like we're sitting there talking to a guy in the middle of the points race, like asking him about his kids and his life and how he ended up here. And like, this is kind of how I got into podcasting, is like, you know, you get to meet these individuals and these people, and like we get to meet these people on the road. Like you and I have met so many people, like running the teams that we ran and the programs that we've ran, the friends that we have through bike racing, which is really cool. But I think the cool thing about these events is that you actually get to ride these events with these individuals. You're both kind of hurting. You're both kind of under the pump. And you get to tell these stories with each other. So do you have any like kind of cool stories from the race, or like just meeting anyone or just chatting with anyone?
Not really. I mean, I feel like namely, I was just really impressed with like when I'd get done and I'd see the time and I'd be like, yeah, I went as hard as I possibly could. And then I'd see like Russell's time and I was like, wow, he finished like an hour and a half before I did.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah.
Just the sheer speed of like some of the people who are riding like the downhill sections and stuff like that, especially on like, um, jacks and things like that, where it's just like, I was just absolutely riding at my limit, like not touching the brakes, trying to like push it in the corners and all that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there'd just be someone on like an enduro bike that I literally hadn't seen for the last 3 hours, and they'd be like, on your left, and like just blast right by me, like keep it up, dude, just
Yeah.
and that was just like mind blowing to me, because I honestly couldn't imagine going any faster than that on some of those downhills.
Yeah. Super humbling kind of situations. No,
Yeah.
cool, man. And so finally, I guess my thing is like, you are a Colorado local. Do you have any advice for like, what's the dinner spot that you would recommend to somebody coming into town, that they gotta check out, or where do they gotta go grab a beer, or just like even while they're in town, they gotta go check this spot out?
I really like that Dos Santos place, the taco spot.
Yep, I can do some Dos Santos.
Yeah, you can't go wrong there. Everything on the menu is good.
I'm a big. I don't. Have you tried Torchy Tacos? I think it's like a chain restaurant.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet, actually, but
It's actually really good, but it's really far away. But yeah, Dos Santos is really good for the taco game. I think if you're gonna be in downtown, and beers and
Drifters
margaritas
too, man. If you like burgers, like Drifters is like In-N-Out ripoff. It's super good.
Yeah, I haven't done the Drifters yet. I haven't gotten there. We have one right next to the house. I haven't committed. But no, yeah, cool, man. Well, guys, if you haven't already, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for listening. And yeah, be sure to go check out Robert Mayfield Coaching. I'll put the link in the description below. You can go check him out. And honestly, like, we're not here selling coaching. We're not here selling these things. But if you have questions, like, you can just drop a line to either him, myself, anybody at the race about the event. We'd be more than willing to help guide you in any way that we possibly can. But other than that, Robert, thanks so much for jumping on last minute. I really appreciate it. And yeah, guys, we'll see you next time. Cheers.